Topping the news, officials from the Ministry of Finance are finalizing the details of the 2019-2020 budget, which is expected to be presented by the Minister of Finance, Deputy Prime Minister the Honorable Peter Turnquest, 1 week from today on May 29th in the House of Assembly. The current budget brought an increase in value-added tax from 7.5% to 12% and a new sliding scale tax for gaming houses, which proposed gaming houses that earn more than $100 million each year would pay up to 50% of their revenue. Minister Turnquest recently told reporters that a key part of the new budget will focus on spending on infrastructure. Tonight we begin a series of reports on the budget and its processes. Our Altavi's Munnings takes a look at the Fiscal Responsibility Act.
The Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018 represents a new approach by government to fiscal management and underscores 6 general principles of responsible fiscal management. That includes accountability, intergenerational equity, responsibility, stability, transparency, and inclusive growth. Minister of Finance, Deputy Prime Minister the Honorable Peter Turnquest initially described the act as setting guiding principles and rules for the way the government spends and accounts for the people's money. He says instead of relying on governments to exercise fiscal discipline by choice, the new legislation constrains spending by the force of law. The Fiscal Responsibility Act requires government to produce a fiscal strategy report to articulate government's fiscal policy and measure performance. Other new reports include a pre-election economic and fiscal update, a mid-year review, government's fiscal adjustment plan, and the fiscal impact analysis. The specific fiscal objectives are to reduce the debt to gross domestic product ratio to a maximum of 50% of GDP, to lower the fiscal balance from a deficit of 5.8% of GDP to no more than 0.5% from the fiscal year 2020, 2021 and beyond, and then to ensure that the growth of current expenditure does not exceed the long-run growth in nominal GDP, which currently averages some 3%. Keeping in line with the composition of government's budget, the Act stipulates that the fiscal strategy report contains a fiscal balance for the overall budget, a summary of the sources of budget financing, the level of debt by external source, domestic source, and the level of financial and performance guarantees. Now, the Act indicates that the fiscal strategy report must be submitted no later than the first Tuesday of November of each financial year, and the Minister of Finance is expected to present the fiscal strategy report to Cabinet for its approval. Now, once the fiscal strategy report has been approved by Cabinet and no later than the 3rd Wednesday of November of each financial year, the Minister shall submit the fiscal strategy report to the Parliament and the independent 5-member Fiscal Responsibility Council. The Act also stipulates that if government is in breach of the fiscal responsibility principles, the Finance Minister must appear before Parliament's Public Accounts Committee to explain the cause of the breach and the fiscal adjustment plan. Minister Turnquest, in a statement to our news team today, maintains that fiscal responsibility guidelines or targets are important to provide a framework for the construction of the national budget. He says it ensures that government arrests the undisciplined practices of the past, where practical core fiscal principles and discipline were ignored for the political expediency of the day versus the long-term health and strength of the country. Minister Turnquest said with the debt and deficit targets publicly stated, the Bahamian public can now hold government accountable and demand explanations for variations from the stated plans, enhancing transparency in public finance and accountability to the public for the decisions government makes on their behalf. I'm Altavi's Munnings, ZNS Network News.